So, today we're going to be reading from Chronicles chapter 10. All right, let's jump right in. Chronicles chapter 10. Chronicles 10, 1 through 3 says, Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell down slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard after Saul and after his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua and the sons of Saul. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was wounded of the archers. Okay, as we go through chapter 10 of Chronicles, we're going to look at it from a different rendering, if you would, from a slightly, well, more than slight, but a different rendering, for the Hebrew is a unique language in that, its words, well, I guess that's not all that unique, but its words can mean many things, because when an Eastern mindset, when someone with an Eastern mindset, when they look at something, they see things a whole lot different than those of us with the Western mindset, and a lot of people don't factor this into the scriptures, but that being said, passages can have dubious meanings. They can say one thing and yet say something else at the same time. Like this interpretation of this passage is pretty good. It's spot on. But behind the words, there's alternative meanings that can actually say something else at the same time. And so it is. It is telling us something else, and I believe it's a spiritual message within the message for us. And speaking to the spiritual aspect of Yisrael, which is anyone who's wrestling with good and evil and trying to prevail by holding on to Elohim. We see a struggle that's going on against the Philistines. Now, just to give you a little backdrop to the story, this is during the time when Israel had errantly asked for a king to be over them. They wanted someone other than Yahuwah to preside over them. And they kind of insisted on this. And so Yahuwah allowed it. And so he's anointed and appointed Saul to be over them. Now, Saul's name means asked or desired. And spiritually speaking, he speaks to those things that we ask for and that we desire. And on a spiritual, from a spiritual perspective, you can see that Israel wants those things that they're asking for and desiring to rule over them. And so Yah will allow those things you asked for and desired of him to rule over you. Now, how many of you know that didn't turn out to be a good thing? So one of the enemies of Israel was the Philistines. And the Philistines, their name means immigrants. Okay? Immigrants are those that come from someplace else, right? Yeah. So one of the enemies of those of us who wrestle with good and evil and try to prevail over evil by holding on to Elohim will be immigrants. This is one of our arch enemies. These are those people and things that enter into our lives that are not of Yah. And they seek to defeat us from causing us to stray from Yah. Now, in verse 1, it tells us that the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines. Whenever you're fighting and you have to flee, that is not a good sign. Just, word to the wise. And it says, and they fell down in Mount Gilboa. Where did they fall at? In Mount Gilboa. That speaks to a nation. Mountain speaks to nations spiritually in Scripture. And Gilboa is a compound word. It's a gil or gal, and in the Hebrew number 1530, meaning something rolling. And ba'ah in the Hebrew number 1158, meaning to gush over or swell, figuratively to earnestly desire. So, one interpretation of Gilboa could be rolling desires. Now, can you see the connection that Israel at some point chose for Yah not to be over them, to rule over them directly, but to have an intermediary, and that intermediary was what they asked for in their desires. So now their desires is ruling over them. And the immigrants come in, things that Yah would have probably not wanted you to have. They come into your life and they cause you to fall down slain in your rolling desires, which speaks to your many desires, your ever-changing desires. Because how many of you know or can testify to that, because you have a desire today and it's met, you're liable to have one tomorrow too. It is rolling desires. It's not just that one, you get that one satisfied and all of a sudden you're not satisfied anymore. And it was the most wondrous thing when you received it, but then, 10 minutes later it's like, okay, next desire, kind of remind me of the old Christmas presents, you spent half the year begging for it, then you got it, and a day or two later, it's over in the corner somewhere, and your parents looking at all that money they spend like, I know that's not just sitting over there, yeah, gotcha again, yeah, you wanted that so bad, but that's kind of how it's like. That's kind of how it's like, our desires will, the immigrants, the things that Yah doesn't really want us to have, but will allow us to have because we have our desires ruling over us, will cause us to fall down slain in those desires. So we have to learn to overcome our enemy, i.e., those things that are not of Yah that we want anyway. Okay, now verse 2 says the Philistines followed hard after Saul. So that tells us that, these things that are not of Yah that we want anyhow, such as premarital relations, and stuff like that, we just say stuff like that. Okay, things that we want, even though it's forbidden by Yah, we want it anyway. See, those things begin to enter into our world and they begin to rule over us, even as Saul did, but it's not going to end well. It's going to cause us to fall down slain in Gilboa. We're going to find ourselves slain in our ever-changing desires. And not only was Saul destroyed that day, but all of his sons was destroyed. One in particular that I want to speak about, and that's the one that was given of Yah, Jonathan. Jonathan was David's or Dawood's, covenanted brother, if you would. And Dawood's, his name means beloved. Now this is who we want to hang out with. This is our boy right here. This is who Yah wants to rule over us. But he can't as long as Saul is still ruling. Hello? Yep. Hello? Okay. I'm just making sure the mic still works. Okay. So, Dawood can't rule over us as long as Saul is still alive, as long as he's still ruling over Israel. And even though his son, which is the prince, is given of Yah, he still dies with Saul. So we can want good gifts, but when they're mixed with those things that Yah doesn't want us to have, we still will find ourselves falling slain in Gilboa. Still find ourselves slain in our ever-changing desires. Even though, even as his brother's name means, our Father is willing. Even though, as his other brother's name depicts, we're serving the King of generosity. He's so generous that he'll give us the desires of our heart even when they're not in our best interest, if we insist. If we insist. So we need to learn the lesson from natural Israel, and asking for a king to be an intermediate betwixt us and Yah. We need to learn from that. Now, verse 3 says, "In the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him." Now, I love this right here. This is good. It says, "And the archers hit him, and he was wounded of the archers." See, when you have your desires ruling over you long enough, eventually, the enemy is going to come. And when you do that, I want you to know that, it's Yah who sends your enemies. He's the one who causes you to fall. Hello? Yep. Now, so keep that in mind, because he sends them, to discipline you. Okay, now here it is. The battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him. Now, when we look at this word archers, this Yarah in the Hebrew, number 3384, meaning to flow as water. That is to rain. It can speak to rain. It also means to lay or throw, especially an arrow, that is to shoot. But it also means, and oftentimes is translated, to teach. So here it is. We have a spiritual picture that the teachers in the battle go sore after Saul. They go sore after those desires, after those things that you asked for. Yah is ever trying to teach us what's good for us. And those things that he teaches us flies against those desires that we want to rule over us. See, and this teaching is what wounds the desires that rule over us. Yes, I would. I got my girlfriend, or if you're a woman, you have your boyfriend, and yeah, you want to test the waters before you want to get some of the milk before you buy the cow, so to speak. Yeah, all that. But the thing is, the archers, come up against that. And they will wound Saul. They will wound that desire. And a lot of people, they get wounded and, they want to pull the arrow out. But anyway, we look at this word wounded. It's cool. No, it's not cool, but it's cool. Yeah, you get me. But in the Hebrew number 2342, it means to twist or whirl, specifically to dance. So here it is. It speaks to also to writhe in pain. So here it is. You get taught this lesson, and you're twisting and writhing in pain. See, because Yah sends the teachers to teach you, and and it results in pain because you can't do what you want to do, or because you did what you wanted to do. But any way you look at it, this is what will cause the death of those desires. You know, now this happened to Saul. In verses 4 through 10, it goes on to say, then said Saul to his armor bearer, draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. So Saul took a sword and fell upon it. That's one thing that Saul did right. You know, when we look spiritually speaking, we know the sword speaks to what? The word of Elohim. You know, that's one thing that Saul got right. See, because those immigrants will abuse you. When you allow those things into your life that Yah doesn't want you to have, and that he's taught you about, and they've wounded you, yet you still want it anyhow, you need to learn this lesson from Saul. Draw thy sword and fall on it. The sword speaks to the word of Elohim, so we see him taking the sword of Elohim and falling upon it. You know, he's taking the word of Elohim and he's falling upon it. Oh, hallelujah. And guess what it does to him? It kills him. Just where it's supposed to, just what it's supposed to do. See, Yah's word will kill all those desires that are not of him. If you let the word do its work in you, it will kill all of those desires from those immigrants that's from the outside world, that has no business in the kingdom of Elohim, that has no business with the people of Elohim. You know, it will actually kill all that. If you allow it to. If you fall on the sword. See, and that's what some of us need to learn to do. We need to learn to stop writhing in pain because we've been wounded and just give up and fall on the sword. That'll preach, won't it? Good thing I'm not preaching. You know, hallelujah. But that's good, though. Because some people need to fall on that sword now today. Some people need to fall on that sword. It says, it goes on to say, and when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise on the sword and died. Oh, see, now this is catching on. This is catching on. This is how that's how it's supposed to go. I know it sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing for Israel. It's a bad thing for those desires which wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. But it's a good thing for Israel. I don't know why God has me on relationships with this, you know, but here it is. God done killed the relationship. You know, he done wounded the relationship, rather. You know, he done sent his teachers to come up against that relationship, that ungodly relationship, and he done wounded it. And you're writhing in pain, and yet some of us still won't fall on the sword. We'd rather just stay there laying than withering in pain. But if we continue to do that, then we already know what's going to happen, because Saul told us. He said, kill me, lest they come and abuse me. See, but some of us don't refuse to fall on the sword, and we get abused anyhow, because we won't fall on the sword. We won't allow ourselves to fall on the word of Elohim so that that thing can be killed, so it can die. Don't you know there's no pain in death? It's only pain in dying. But there's no pain in death. You know, and that's where some of us got to get to. We got to get to where, you know, we got enough nerve to fall on the sword. It says, it goes on to say, in verse 7, it says, and when all the men of Israel that were in the valley saw that, they fled. And that Saul and his sons were dead, and they forsook their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they was rejoicing, but they didn't know that wasn't a good thing. They were happy because they had killed Saul, but they didn't know that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, now Israel would be fortified. Now that Israel done got those things that it desired out of this life, now y'all can put the one in authority to rule over Israel that he wanted, the one that has a heart after him. It says in verse 9 that when they had stripped him, they took his head and his armor and sent it into the land of the Philistines round about, to carrying tidings unto their idols and to the people. And they put his armor in the house of their gods and fastened his head in the temple of Dagon, which is just where it belongs. You got to let those wicked desires stay where they belong, with the wicked one, with their gods. It don't belong in the house of your God. Right. Doesn't belong in the house of Elohim.
That's right.
So we have to learn to let that stuff go. It sounds like a bad thing that's happening, but it's actually a really good thing for Israel as a whole. Verses 11 through 14, it goes on to say, when all Jabesh Gilead heard all that the Philistines had done to Saul, they arose, all the valiant men, and took away the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons, and brought them to Yabesh, and buried their bones under the oak in Yabesh, and fasted 7 days. Yabesh Gilead speaks to a dry heap of testimony. And Yabesh, speaks to dry. And what we have is a spiritual picture here of valiant men, going and getting the bodies of Saul, of those things that they desire. These are the dead bodies, and Saul's don't have a head, so they went to get these dead desires and they buried them up under the oak tree. The oak tree is like the strongest in the forest. It's like the strongest tree in the forest. That's the way the Hebrews will look at it. They will look at it. When they look at the oak, they see the strongest thing in the forest. So, they buried it up under the strongest thing in the forest. See, and this is what we need to do with those ungodly desires. We need to take those dead desires and bury them under the strongest thing in the forest.
Yes, we do.
We need to allow them to become dry, like Yabesh. See, and we need to, see, the valiant men, they were from Yabesh Gilead, in that when they come back, they have a testimony concerning those things that wasn't supposed to be in Israel in the first place. It was never the will of Elohim that they had a king over them in the first place. So now here it is, you have these valiant men that have this testimony concerning what not to do. And to keep that testimony alive, they go and get the bones and they bury it up under the strongest thing in the forest, so that folks won't forget. Verse 13 goes on to tell us, so Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against Yahuwah, even against the word of Yahuwah, which he kept not. See, this is the reason why things die in our lives. Sometimes, we have these unfruitful relationships that are not of Yah to begin with. He teaches us that they're not of him, and it causes us a lot of pain, but we just refuse to fall on the sword. But when we finally get the nerve up to fall on the sword, then we realize that, hey, it was doomed from the beginning. And it died in this transgression because that it committed against Yahuwah, even against the word of Yahuwah. That's the sword. It goes on to say, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it, and inquired not of Yahuwah. Therefore he slew him and turned the kingdom to David, the son of Yesse. That's what gets Israel in a lot of trouble. That's what gets a lot of us in a lot of trouble is, not inquiring of Yahuwah. Going someplace else, asking something else. I had a client that came to me and was, that kind of done something similar, to going to a familiar spirit. It didn't turn out well. But there's consequences for those of us who have covenanted with Yahuwah, and then want to go and inquire of other spirits. It's not going to end good. So, says, therefore he slew him, that he speaks to Yah. See, I wanted you to see that because, as I've said in the beginning, he the one who sent the immigrants against them. He the one who sent the Philistines. And it says, and turned the kingdom to David, the son of Jesse, to the beloved one. I forgot what Jesse means. But turned it over to, I'm sorry.
Wealthy.
Oh, wealthy? Oh. So, turned it over to David, the beloved son of the most wealthiest one there is. The beloved son of the wealthy. 1 Corinthians 11, 1 through 4 goes on to say, and it just didn't seem right to end it right there because this is the culmination. This is the high point of the story. It says, then all Israel gathered themselves to David unto Hebron, saying, behold, we are thy bone and thy flesh. And moreover, in times past, even Saul was king. Even when Saul was king, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And Yahuwah, even thy Elohim, said unto thee, thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be ruler over my people. Therefore came all the elders of Israel to the king and to Hebron, and David made a covenant with them in Hebron before Yahuwah, and they anointed David king over Israel, according to the word of Yahuwah by Shemuel. And David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, which is Jebus, or Jebus, where the Jebusites were the inhabitants of the land. Now this is really profound because I really do believe that it actually speaks to the end times. Speaks to the end times when spiritually Saul will be dead, and spiritually speaking, Israel will, or Ephraim, I should say, will go to David and allow him to rule over them rather than their desires. Now, it says, all Israel gathered themselves to David. They gathered themselves to the beloved. Now, we know David is a type of Yahushua. And we see that he was at Hebron. So they gathered themselves to David, and they make an alliance in Hebron. Hebron means seat of alliance. So they make an alliance in Hebron. An alliance is something that's formed to advance a common interest or cause. And that common interest or cause is the will of Elohim. So you see a spiritual picture here of Israel finally getting Saul out of the way so that the beloved one, Yahushua, can rule and reign over them. And they make an alliance with him while he's in the seat of alliance. That's huge. If you can see the spiritual picture of that, that's huge. And verse 12 says in it, and moreover, in times past when Saul was king, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. In other words, it's telling us that, the battles that was won, even while you were wrestling with good and evil and trying to prevail by holding on to Elohim, yet Saul was ruling over you. The battles that you won, it was because David, the beloved one within you, was going out and coming in. That's a beautiful picture right there. That's beautiful right there. And Yahuwah, thy Elohim, said unto thee, thou shalt feed my people Israel. and thou shalt be ruler over my people Israel. So, you know, this is a beautiful picture of Yahushua beginning to rule over us. Once we've done killed those desires, you know, that's ruling over us instead of Yah. And it says, and David made a covenant with them in Hebron before Yahuwah. And of course that speaks to us making a covenant with Yahushua. And they anointed David king over Israel. And some of you just ought to anoint Yahushua king over you, according to the word of Yahuwah by Shemuel. You know, and eventually, verse 4 will come to pass in our lives too. And it says, and David and all Israel went to Jerusalem. See, up until that time, he was reigning in Hebron. See, but after Saul dies, you know, then all of Israel go to Jerusalem. And it's going to be likewise in the last days. You know, we will go to New Jerusalem. You know, which is Yebus. What does Yebus means? Threshing place. You know, when it's all said and done, when Yahushua began to rule over Israel, we will go to the threshing place, even New Jerusalem. And our Messiah teaches us this in Matthew 3:11-12. It says, I indeed baptize. This is Yochanan the Immerser, or John the Baptist speaking. He says, I indeed baptize you with water unto repentance. But he that cometh after me is mightier than I, whose sandals I am not fit to fetch. He himself will baptize you with the Ruach HaKodesh and with fire, whose winnowing shovel is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his threshing floor, and gather together his wheat into the garner, but he will burn the shaft with unquenchable fire. Hallelujah. That's all I have for you today. Pray it was a blessing.